I remember one day after working an insane amount of hours and just sitting there with like no money in my bank account, and my dad asking me, "Why don't you just get a normal job?" And this was at a point in my business where I've seen some success and some results, but I was just constantly hitting these ceilings and just at the end of the day being left with no money. This is like 3, 4, 5 years into me building business and trying to be self-employed. I've made a good amount of money at that point, but I just had nothing to show for it. Like I put in all this work, and I sat there with this question from my dad specifically, asking why will I keep doing the business? Like I remember him sitting me down with me. He's like, "Is this all worth it?" Like I think he was really genuinely concerned for me, and I told him I would rather make $30,000 a year working 12 hours a day, whatever, 80 hours a week, working for myself over the imprisonment of sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours a day, getting paid $100,000 a year at some cushy tech job or something like that. You see, I believe so much in just my own personal freedom and my own ability to decide for my own life, significantly far outweighing ever having to work for somebody else and be a slave and having to show up consistently to work with somebody else. And I dreaded that thought of working inside of an office and having to work for somebody, and especially the concept of trading my time for money. I could never comprehend that. Like I would rather go become a stripper, or I would rather go do like Upwork or some sort of thing like that, or I would go find a sales job for somebody if I really had to do it. There isn't a bit of a bone in my body that wants to work a job at all. And it got very concerning for a lot of people around me when I was going through a lot of these phases in trying to figure things out. Like people were concerned for me. They're like, "Devin, like, why don't you just go get a job?" And you see, like what led up to this was I realized that when I was in high school specifically, I remember I got a job during the summer and I worked my ass off. I think I was working like 10 hour days at this place it was like a very manual labor type of job. And I was getting paid, I think like something like $10 an hour. And after working my ass off for 5 whole days, I got a paycheck for about $400. And I remember sitting here looking at this paycheck. At first I was like, okay, cool. Yes. Awesome. I got paid. But then I remember sitting here looking at this paycheck like, I can't believe I just traded that much time for 5 days of my heart and soul and these blood, sweat, and tears. Like literally, I have like a scar on my back from this job because I got like this nail that like scratched my back, and I wanted to play it off. I don't want to be the little bitch, I guess, in at the job that was, injured and couldn't go. Like I don't know. I thought that was so unmanly. And I literally blood, sweat, and tears went into this. And I remember thinking, I literally like played off this like nail getting jabbed like an inch into my skin and pretended like nothing happened for a check of $400. And I did the math. If I wanted to become a millionaire, I viewed that was like freedom. If I wanted to become a millionaire and I was getting paid $400 a week, then that would have taken me 50 years to get to the point where I was a millionaire. At that point, I realized that this doesn't even make sense. And, this was like, I was going to go to school. Like it really built the value to me. I was like, okay, well, if I go get a cushy like tech job or something like that, because for me, I liked like computer science and programming at the time. If I get to go get a tech job and I make $100,000 a year, they have like a decent salary. Now, this would be after like not having any sort of taxes. Like if I could figure out a way to not pay taxes, if I have consistent income, I never get laid off, and my income never drops, and I never get laid off or fired or anything like that. I don't make somebody upset for not being compliant or some stupid thing. Like I don't get laid off or whatever the hell's going on. Like a lot of these tech jobs these days. After 10 years of working whatever, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, then I would hit $1 million. And that's if I had no expenses, I had no taxes to pay somehow, like none of that got taken out of my check, it would take me 10 years. And if you really do the math, it's going to take like 20. If you really do the math, it's going to take 25 to 30 years to even possibly have the chance of becoming a millionaire. So I realized at a young age, like I was like 17, 18, that the system doesn't even make sense. Like I saw the writing on the walls, especially knowing how much time I tried, and especially because you see all of these people that are millionaires, like all these people, like people that are in their like 20s and 30s that are making millions of dollars. And I know damn well that they aren't working in some sort of cubicle or office unless they got some weird ass, like crazy ass pay grade. I looked at literally the map of like, I would go on these websites before I went to college, and I would look at what was the thing that was the highest paying job. I remember like all the time I'd look up the highest paying college degree. And it was either like something whack that just required like insane amounts of manual labor, or for me, when it came to like doing like a tech job or like computer science and programming, I remember looking at it and realizing that like that was like the most amount of money you can make. And I would see these people with these extravagant lifestyles, and I knew damn well they weren't doing some weird pipe welding or something like that. Like I just knew that that wasn't what they were doing. And it pissed me off because it just logically made zero sense whatsoever. Like, how are so many people, because it's not just like there's one or two of these people. There's so many people where they're just like, you know, like I think we always see like these celebrities, we see these professional athletes, we see them making millions of dollars, and we see them having like insane amounts of success. But what about all the people that aren't celebrities or athletes? There's so many people that, you know, at least especially like 10 years ago, there's so many people like making millions of dollars that had nothing to do with any of those things, that are living in all these houses. Like you go on to Zillow or like one of these websites, every house in like some of these different cities or zip codes, like every house is $1 million. Like at the like they're not even $1 million, they're like $3 million. Who the hell is buying these things? I started to realize, like, who's like living in these places? There's no way there's that many celebrities in the world. There's no way there's that many athletes. Like, who are these people? And especially you drive around and let's say like you drive around Laguna, or you know, you go to like some of these nicer cities, and you just see all these people in G-Wagons and Lamborghinis and like all this stuff. It's like, who the hell is buying these things? So it was almost out of like a frustration and like a pain in, like, it was just this like this feeling that was gnawing at me. Like, how is this even possible? I remember getting to a certain point where I was looking up like side hustles to make money online, like how to start a business, how to become a millionaire overnight, how to make your first $1 million, how to make money while you sleep. I just remember thinking like, how are there so many people that are enjoying their lives that aren't working during the day and they're making so much money? And that genuinely frustrated me. It like pissed me off. I was like, how is this even possible? Because no college class teaches you how do you do nothing and drive a Lamborghini and live in a $5 million house. Like, there's nothing like that on there. But you see these people everywhere. When you go in the right areas, like there's just, these people are freaking everywhere. It just doesn't add up. And so that's how I came across business. And that's how I came across the concept of leverage. And that's how I came across the concept of building assets. And I declared at that point, I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure out a way to become one of these people. Like, I can't sit in a cubicle. I can't go, you know, be a part of some sort of dictator of a boss, like go work under a dictator of a boss and have to go sit in traffic every single day just to go get paid a measly $100,000 a year to not even be able to become a millionaire until like 20, at the best 20 years, but more likely 30, 40, 50 years. Like, it just actually doesn't even add up. So I decided I was going to do whatever it took, because at that point I was just so pissed off. I was like, what the hell? And so that's when I came across doing real estate. That's when I came across doing YouTube, and I came to find like how much money like you could actually make as somebody doing YouTube, somebody doing real estate. And then now these days, you know, it's a lot more common. Like when I say, like when I found out about all this was like 2017, 2018. So the year, like the time of like an influencer was still kind of becoming a thing. Like people were just now finding out about how much money these people were making. But it wasn't like where it is today, where it's like freaking everybody has an OnlyFans or whatever the hell, and like all this other, everybody is like has some sort of way of like how do you make money and stuff like that. And we didn't have AI or crypto or anything. Like I feel like back then it was just like there was stuff, but it was like you couldn't really tell what was what. And so I did whatever it took to figure that thing out. Now at this point, I'm at a point where I make multiple millions of dollars a year, and it was because I did whatever it took. I remember sitting there, like I remember that conversation, flash forward to that conversation I started off with in the video, of my dad telling me, you know, why don't you go get a job? All these thoughts were running through my head. It doesn't like, and my dad, like I love him, and I think he is a very great guy. But I looked at him too, and I was just like, I don't really want this life. I don't want to work my way up some corporate ladder, go kiss ass, and try to like figure a way to do these things. Like, no disrespect to him, like I think he's an amazing guy, but I just realized it wasn't for me. And so that for me was like I was willing to do whatever it took. And then, you know, always after like a few months, 6 months later, then I was doing better than I ever was ever before. And one thing that I learned along this path of like this lifestyle that you live, it's just it's not always like rainbows and sunshines. I will say that. But also I would rather have 5 years of pain and suffering to have like another, you know, 65 great years of my life instead of having 40 years of misery, of mediocrity, just to be able to enjoy 7 years of my life. Because if you do the math, like I've done the math before, the average age of expectancy is 72. The average age of retirement is 65 these days. And so if you think about it, you go to school for your first 18 years, probably 22 if you go to college, maybe, you know, maybe 23, 24, it takes you a little bit to graduate. And then you work 40 years of your life to go work for somebody else, a dictator or a boss or whatever. And then at the end of the 40 years, you're 65. You literally have 7 years to enjoy your money if you live to the average age of 72 as a man. The math ain't math in there. It doesn't remotely make any sense whatsoever. And that is how I realized, like, I can't work a job. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I am, you know, I view myself as a very intelligent person. I feel like I'm very smart. In a lot of ways, I'm very dumb as well. Like, I'm very, like, flip-sided of, like, double-edged sword there. I know I'm very smart, but I'm very dumb. And I thought that I was like, I am way too smart to go down this pathway. I realized like it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever for me to go down this pathway. Knowing how many people are making millions of dollars, knowing that they're printing $500 million in the United States alone, knowing that there are like 1 million millionaires that are created every single week, it just doesn't make sense to even possibly think of like going and working a job. And so if that resonates with you, just know that like you're not alone. I came to the realization I wasn't the only person out there. You know, these videos that I would go and watch, they would get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even some of them now these days, millions of views. And I realized this is like a movement. This is like a thing that is becoming the norm, especially with all these crazy amount of tech layoffs, all these things happening in the economy, in the new world that we live in with like attention and platforms and distributions like Shopify or like Amazon or YouTube, where anybody can get started, especially with not that much money, and make some like insanely serious money. Like the amount of people I know making $100,000 a month with YouTube is ridiculous. Like I think there's a statistic where there's over 450,000 YouTube channels that have over 100,000 subscribers. Just the movement is insanity. There are so many people that are on this movement as well, and that was a cool thing to realize that this is a normal thing. This is a normal pathway. Like for you to not work a job, it's not that crazy anymore. I can only imagine being one of those people like 20 years ago that was like, I'm not going to work a job. You were probably some hippie that was like shunned from your family and was never to be respected ever again. I can only imagine being one of those people. But these days it's okay. These days it's normal. There's so many business models. There's so many ways to make money these days. It's just like, I can't even comprehend getting a job, because it's just like, if I lost everything, which I've done that many times at this point, I'll just be straight with you guys. Like if I lost everything, I would just pick up my phone and just start making calls. I would find some sort of product to sell, and I would start making calls. And then as soon as I started making some money, I would build a YouTube channel. If all my YouTube channels weren't working, I would put that money into building a YouTube channel and getting that to where I had consistent income that paid for all my bills like I do now. And I would build $100 million companies. I would just go back to doing what I'm doing now. It's just like, if I lose everything, it's not the end of the world. I can literally just start over again, just come up with some random product, start selling it, and then just figure out a way to fulfill. Or I would find somebody that has a product already and I would start selling it. And then from there, I would just then start building YouTube channels, start building assets, start trading and selling assets, and just constantly just keep playing that game to level up and up and up like I am now. You don't have to work a 9-to-5 job. It sounds scary to think, what would you do if you didn't have that? But there's so many ways to make money these days. There's Upwork, there's Fiverr, there's Uber Eats if you really had to, there's DoorDash, there's like 20 different apps of like delivery. Uber Eats, DoorDash, Lyft. You can work all these different jobs if you really had to come down to it. The amount of like people that I've worked with, like some of my students or some of my friends, they would just go work like some delivery service apps until they were profitably making money with their YouTube channel. I can't work a 9-to-5. I know some of you guys watching this video, you can't either. And this video is encouragement to those of you that are watching this. I believe in you. Maybe some other people don't believe in you, but I believe in you. And you probably have somebody in your life, like whether it was a mom or a grandma or somebody that you know, they believed in you as well. And I want you to listen to that person, not the 10,000, 100,000 people that are on Reddit that are saying like it's impossible for you to do these things. Just think about how many people are actually millionaires and how many people actually figured it out. And there's no reason that you can't figure it out yourself as well. So that's what I have. So anyways, thank you guys in this channel. This journey is kind of like a little bit of, me sharing my thoughts and just like having fun making these videos. I started to get to where on my main channel, like I make some like super professional content, but I like having some content where I can kind of like riff on a little bit, where I can just write a few bullet points and I just go and talk, whatever the hell is on my head. It's a lot of fun. I think that's why I got into one of my favorite parts when it comes to YouTube. If I'm to detach myself from this, the money, the point system that we have in this world, which is the whole like making money so you can buy something to make other people jealous, and you make this money for like this life that we don't even live for forever. That point system's all fucked up. And what I found is that like making these videos is one of my favorite things. Just reading your guys' comments, seeing all of the amounts of lives that we impact by making these things. Like I literally made a video like 2 days ago of me like in my bed, just like freaking talking about people making millions of dollars online. Like I thought that was the funniest thing. The video did really well too, is what's funny. So I've been having a lot of fun doing this. I read every single one of your guys' comments, and I'm excited to see where this goes. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.